When I was a boy, I spent most of my days in the hills, watching over my father's sheep. It wasn't a glamorous life. No crowds, no fancy clothes, no exciting stories to tell anyone at home. Just me, the sheep, and the wind. But I didn't mind it. I liked the quiet, the gentle baaing of the lambs, the sound of the breeze moving through the grass, the cool water running beside the pastures. It was peaceful. I used to lie on my back and stare at the clouds, wondering what God was like. Was he big like the mountains? Was his voice louder than thunder, or quiet like the stillness just before morning? I had my sling and my staff, but what I loved most was my harp. I'd sit under a tree, strumming the strings, making up little tunes. Sometimes I sang about the hills, or the sheep, or just hummed whatever came to my heart. I didn't know if anyone else would ever hear my songs, but I always had a feeling that someone was listening. Taking care of sheep meant you had to stay alert. They wandered off if you didn't watch them, and sometimes danger came close. One time, a lion crept into the flock at night. I was half asleep, but the sound of panic woke me. I ran toward the noise and saw its eyes glowing in the dark, teeth bared, dragging off a lamb. My heart pounded. I should have been scared. I was scared. But something rose up inside me. I didn't even think. I grabbed a stone, slung it fast, and ran after it with my staff. I struck it and pulled the lamb from its mouth. I still remember the sound it made as it growled and turned on me. I fought with all I had until it lay still on the ground. I stood there panting, blood on my hands, the lamb safe beside me. Another time, it was a bear. Same story. It tried to take what I was meant to protect. And again, I fought back. Not because I was strong, but because I knew the sheep were mine to guard. I wasn't going to let them get taken on my watch. I always believed God gave me that courage. I wasn't just fighting wild animals. I was doing the job He gave me, and I trusted Him to help me do it well. No one really saw those moments. No one gave me medals or sang songs about me. Back home, I was just the youngest of 8 sons. My brothers were older, taller, stronger. They fought in the army, looked the part, talked like warriors. I was the little one, the one they left behind with the sheep. Then one day, everything changed. It started like a normal morning. I woke up with the sheep, cleaned my sling, tuned my harp, stretched out under a fig tree. But I could tell something was off when one of the servants came running toward me, eyes wide. He said, "Your father wants you back at the house. Now the prophet Samuel is here." Samuel, everyone knew that name. He spoke for God. When he showed up, something big was happening. I dropped everything and ran. When I got there, I saw my father, Jesse, standing nervously in the corner. My brothers were all lined up, tall, straight, trying not to look too proud. Samuel stood in front of them, quiet. He looked each one up and down, but something about his face told me he wasn't impressed. I didn't understand what was going on. I just stood there, sweaty and dusty from the hills, watching from the side. Then Samuel turned to my father and asked, "Are these all your sons?" My father looked at the floor. "Well, there's still the youngest. He's out with the sheep." Samuel smiled. "Send for him. We won't sit down until he gets here." So they waited for me. All those important people just standing around while I caught my breath and tried to figure out what in the world was going on. When I stepped forward, Samuel looked at me, really looked at me, not like someone judging my size or my clothes. He looked past that, like he could see my heart, and then he nodded. "This is the one," he said. Before I knew it, he took out a little horn of oil and poured it on my head. The oil ran down my hair and onto my shoulders. It smelled sharp and holy. I didn't understand why he was doing it, not fully, but I felt something, like warmth inside me, like a weight and a promise all at once. My brothers stared in silence. My father didn't say much. I didn't either. What was there to say? I went back to the sheep the next day. The hills were still there. The harp still sang. But something inside me had changed. I couldn't explain it, even if I wanted to. It was like God had whispered to my heart, "I see you. I've chosen you." And that was enough. I didn't plan to end up on a battlefield that day. I was just doing what my father told me to, bringing some food to my brothers and checking on how they were doing in the army. The battlefield wasn't far from the hills where I kept the sheep, but it felt like a different world. No quiet pastures, just dust, shouting, armor clanking, and the smell of fear. As I got closer, I saw the two armies on opposite hills with a valley in between. Then I heard it, this booming voice, mocking, cursing, taunting. I froze. There he was, a giant. Not just big, huge, towering over every man in sight. His armor shimmered in the sun, heavy and loud with every move. His sword looked more like a tree trunk than a weapon. And he was laughing at us, at God. He stood in the valley and shouted, "Why even bother with the whole army? Send me one man, just one. Let him fight me. If he wins, we'll be your servants. But if I win, you'll be ours." Nobody moved. Not Saul, not my brothers, not the bravest warriors. No one stepped forward. Every morning and every evening for 40 days, this Philistine came out and said the same thing. And every time, our men stayed silent. But something in me couldn't take it. I didn't understand. Why were we letting him speak like that about God? Why wasn't anyone doing anything? My heart started burning, not with fear, but with something stronger, a fire, a kind of anger that wasn't just mine. It felt like the Spirit of the Lord had gripped me. I asked, "Who is this man that he should defy the armies of the living God?" People laughed. Some rolled their eyes. My oldest brother, Eliab, got angry. "Why are you here? You just came to watch the battle. Go back to the sheep." But I wasn't trying to show off. I just couldn't let it go. I said, "I can fight him." At first, they thought I was joking. A shepherd boy with no armor, no rank, no sword. But word got to Saul, and he called for me. I stood before the king, nervous but certain. He looked me up and down. "You can't fight him. You're just a boy." I said, "Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this Philistine will be like one of them, not because of me, but because he has defied the living God." There was a long pause. Then Saul sighed and said, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." He tried to put his armor on me, but I couldn't even walk in it. It was heavy, unfamiliar. I shook it off. I wasn't trying to be a soldier. I just needed what I knew. I picked up 5 smooth stones from the brook, slipped them into my pouch, and gripped my sling. When I stepped into the valley, it was just me and him. He saw me coming and laughed. Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? His voice was full of hate. Come here and I'll feed your flesh to the birds. I didn't flinch. I said, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me. The whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. I started to run, not away, toward him. My hand reached into the pouch. I pulled out one stone, placed it in the sling, and spun it fast, faster than I'd ever spun it before. The wind whistled past my ears. I aimed straight at his forehead. Then, impact. The stone sank deep. His laughter stopped. His eyes widened in surprise, and then he fell, face down, heavy, loud, final. For a moment, the world was silent. I didn't feel like shouting. I didn't feel like dancing. I just stood there, breathing hard, dust in my mouth, heart pounding. Not because I had done something amazing, but because I had seen what God could do when someone believes. I ran to him, pulled out his own sword, and finished what had begun. The Philistines turned and ran. Our army finally found its voice and chased after them. But I just stood there, holding the sword, looking up at the sky. I was just a shepherd. But that day, God used me to bring down a giant. At first, I thought Saul liked me. I played music for him when he couldn't sleep, just my harp and some quiet songs. And when I beat the giant, he brought me into his court. I ate at his table. I wore a soldier's clothes. I thought I was part of something good. But something changed. People started singing songs. I never asked them to. They danced in the streets, shouting, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. I didn't know those words would cost me everything. I saw it in Saul's eyes. At first, just a look, then silence, then a spear. He threw it at me. Not once, twice, maybe more. I lost count. Each time I dodged it, each time my heart beat faster, not because of the spear, but because I saw the hatred in his face. It wasn't just fear, it was jealousy, burning, wild jealousy. One day I was his musician, the next I was his enemy. He sent me into battles, hoping I wouldn't return. But God was with me. I kept surviving. And the more I won, the more Saul hated me. He made it clear I wasn't safe anymore. So I ran. First in secret, then openly, from palace to tent, from field to forest. He sent men after me. Every time I thought I could rest, someone came knocking, whispering, "He's close. Move now." I spent months hiding in caves, the kind where you can't light a fire or talk too loud, where every creak of a branch sounds like footsteps. I learned how to sleep with one eye open, how to live with the feeling that someone was always watching. The worst part wasn't the hunger, or the cold, or the danger. It was the silence, the kind of silence that makes you ask, God, are you still there? Did you forget me? I'd pray in the dark, whispering into stone walls. I'd ask why. Why did you anoint me if I was just going to run for my life? Why let Saul chase me when all I ever did was serve? No answer. Just the wind, just my own heartbeat. Sometimes I cried, not like a warrior, but like a boy, alone, tired, confused. But I kept holding on. One night, everything changed. I was hiding in a cave with a few men. We just barely escaped Saul's army again. I didn't know, but that very night, Saul walked into the same cave. He didn't see us. He came in to rest. My men whispered, "This is it. God has delivered him into your hands. Do it. End this." I crept forward, quiet as a shadow. There he was, sleeping, helpless. My fingers brushed the handle of my sword. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, but I couldn't do it. I cut off a corner of his robe, that's all. Then I slipped back into the shadows, my hands shaking. Even that small act made me feel sick. Who was I to touch the Lord's anointed? When Saul left the cave, I followed. I stood far off and called his name. "My lord the king." He turned, startled. I held up the piece of his robe and said, "See? I could have hurt you, but I didn't. Why do you chase me? What have I done to you?" He stood there, speechless. For a moment, his voice broke. He wept. "You are more righteous than I," he said. "You have treated me well, and I have treated you badly." Then he walked away. But peace didn't last. He came after me again. Still, I never lifted my hand against him. I couldn't. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I feared God more than I feared Saul. In all those long days of running, there was one person who stood by me, Jonathan, Saul's son. He should have been my rival, the next in line for the throne, the one who had the most to lose. But he wasn't like that. He was kind, loyal, brave. He came to me in secret, risking everything. We talked under trees, by rocks, wherever we wouldn't be seen. He said, "Don't be afraid. My father won't lay a hand on you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be second to you." I didn't know what I had done to deserve a friend like him. He gave me his robe, his sword, his bow, but more than that, he gave me his trust. We made a covenant before God. When we parted, I cried more than I ever had, not because I was weak, but because he was the only one who truly saw me, not a fugitive, not a threat, just David. In the wilderness, hunted and tired, I held on to that friendship like it was my last piece of hope, because some nights, when even prayer felt empty, I remembered Jonathan's words, and I believed again. The day I heard Saul was dead, I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I didn't breathe for a long moment. A messenger came running from the battlefield, his clothes torn, dust in his hair. He thought he was bringing me good news. He told me Saul had fallen in battle, and so had Jonathan. I tore my clothes. I didn't see a dead enemy. I saw a broken man who had once walked with God. I saw the king who had given me my first chance, the father of my best friend, the one who, though he hated me, still carried God's anointing. I wept. I fasted. I wrote a song of mourning, not just for Saul, but for Jonathan, my brother, my heart. How the mighty have fallen, I sang. O Jonathan, your love to me was wonderful, more than the love of women. I didn't become king right away. I didn't rush to take Saul's throne. Instead, I asked God, should I go up to one of the towns of Judah? And he said, go. I asked again, which one? He said, Hebron. So I went, quietly, humbly, just with my family and a few men. There the people of Judah anointed me king, not over all Israel, just one tribe. The rest were still grieving. Some still followed Saul's family. I didn't push. I waited. Years passed. Little by little, God opened the doors. There were battles, negotiations, betrayals, but I didn't take the throne by force. I watched as one door closed, another opened, until one day the elders of Israel came to me in Hebron and said, We are your own flesh and blood. Even when Saul was king, you were the one who led us in and out. And the Lord said, You shall shepherd my people Israel. So they anointed me king over all Israel. It didn't feel like a victory parade. It felt like a calling fulfilled, heavy, sacred, undeserved. The first thing I did as king was to take Jerusalem. It had been sitting there for years, held by the Jebusites. They laughed at me, said even the blind and the lame could defend the city against me. But we took it, not because of our strength, but because God was with us. I made it my city, the city of David. Then I turned my heart to something deeper, the Ark. The Ark of the Covenant wasn't just a box. It was the sign of God's presence, the symbol of his promises. It had been sitting outside the city for too long. I wanted to bring it home. So I gathered the people. We made music. We danced. Trumpets, cymbals, shouts of joy. But we didn't carry it the way God commanded. We put it on a cart. And when the oxen stumbled, a man named Uzzah reached out to steady it and died on the spot. I froze. Fear gripped me. I realized we were being careless with something holy. So I paused, took time, sought God's word. Later, we tried again. This time, we carried it properly, on the shoulders of the priests, step by step, offering sacrifices, singing songs. And I danced, not just a small dance, wild, joyful, free. I didn't care who was watching. I took off my royal robe, wore a linen ephod, and danced like a shepherd boy again. Some people didn't like it. Even Michal, Saul's daughter, looked at me with disgust. You've dishonored yourself, she said. I looked at her and said, I will become even more undignified than this, because it's for the Lord. That day, the ark entered Jerusalem. The city felt alive, like heaven had drawn near. Not long after, I sat in my house, a palace of cedar, and I had a thought. Here I am, living in a beautiful house, while the ark of God sits in a tent. I told the prophet Nathan, I want to build a temple for the Lord. He smiled and said, Do all that is in your heart. But that night, God spoke to him. The next morning, Nathan came back with a different message. Thus says the Lord, Would you build a house for me to dwell in? I have not lived in a house since the day I brought Israel out of Egypt. I've moved with my people, but now I will build you a house. Not a building, a legacy. God said, I took you from the pasture, from following the sheep, to be ruler over my people, and I will make your name great. When your days are fulfilled, I will raise up your offspring after you. He will build a house for my name, and I will establish his throne forever. I couldn't speak. The same God who found me in the fields, who walked with me in caves, who saved me from spears and giants, He now promised me a kingdom that would never end. I didn't deserve it, but I believed him, and I worshiped. I had everything: peace in the land, a strong army, a palace of my own, songs written in my name. People looked at me as the chosen one, the man after God's own heart. But even a man like me can fall, and I fell hard. It started one evening. I wasn't at war. I should have been. That's where kings were supposed to be, with their soldiers. But I stayed behind. I was on the rooftop, walking, thinking. The city below was quiet. Then I saw her, a woman bathing, beautiful, graceful, unaware. I could have looked away. I could have walked back inside. But I didn't. I stared too long. I asked too many questions. I sent for her. Her name was Bathsheba. She came. She shouldn't have had to. I was the king. She couldn't say no. And I sinned. It wasn't love. It wasn't passion. It was selfishness, pride. A moment where I chose what I wanted over what was right. Then she sent word. She was pregnant. I panicked. I tried to cover it up. I sent for her husband, Uriah, a good man, a soldier, loyal and brave. I told him to go home, hoping he'd sleep with his wife. But he refused. He said, "How can I enjoy comfort when my brothers are sleeping in tents?" That cut deep, but not deep enough to stop me. I sent him back to battle with a sealed letter in his hand, orders for his own death. Put Uriah where the fighting is fiercest, then pull back. He died, and I married Bathsheba. I thought it was over, hidden, but God saw everything. Then came Nathan. He didn't yell. He didn't point fingers. He told a story. There were two men in a city, one rich, one poor. The rich man had many sheep. The poor man had one little lamb, raised like a daughter. One day, the rich man took the poor man's lamb and served it to his guest. I was angry. That man deserves to die. Nathan looked at me. You are that man. I couldn't breathe. The room felt cold and silent. His words pierced through every wall I had built inside me. I fell to my knees. I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan said, "You will not die, but the sword will never leave your house." And he walked away. I lay on the floor, face in the dust, for hours, days. I wept until I had no strength left. The child born to us became sick. I fasted, prayed, begged. I lay on the ground, refusing food, hoping maybe, just maybe, God would have mercy. But the child died, and I got up. I washed. I changed clothes. I went to the house of the Lord and worshiped. Not because I wasn't hurting, but because I still believed he was good. Years passed, pain faded, but scars remained. Then came another heartbreak. My son, Absalom. He was strong, handsome, charismatic. The people loved him, and slowly he turned them against me. He sat at the city gate, whispered promises, planted seeds of doubt. Then one day he declared himself king, my own son. I fled Jerusalem, barefoot, weeping, head covered. The same streets that once sang for me now echoed with silence and betrayal. I should have fought back with all I had, but I didn't want war with my son. Even when our armies clashed, I gave one order: be gentle with the boy, for my sake. But Absalom died, hung by his hair in a tree, struck down. When I heard the news, I broke. Oh, Absalom, my son, if only I had died instead of you. I didn't care about the throne, or the crown, or victory. I just wanted my son back, but I couldn't bring him back, so I wept, again, like I had wept for Jonathan, for the child, for my own soul. Still, through it all, I knew something deeper. God hadn't abandoned me. He could have. He had every right to, but he stays. He didn't erase the consequences. I bore them every day, but he held me through them. In the night I'd whisper, have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. And somehow I still felt his presence, not like before, not on mountain tops or with dancing, but in the quiet, in the ashes, in the ache. He was there. He still is. That's how I know he hasn't given up on me, and that's why I haven't given up on him.